Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Mighty Line Minute. Glad to have you aboard today. And today we'll be talking about environmental due diligence, site acquisition, and those issues associated with siting a new warehouse. So when determining a location for a new warehouse, environmental due diligence is essential. This ensures risks associated with contamination and liabilities are identified. Typically, the due diligence process includes a Phase 1 Environmental Site Assessment, or ESA, and if necessary, a Phase 2 Environmental Site Assessment. Let's break each of these down. The Phase 1 ESA is the first step in environmental due diligence. It is a non-invasive process that identifies potential contamination and environmental liabilities. Number 1, site inspection. A visual inspection of the property and the surrounding areas identifies contamination signs or hazardous materials. Number 2, historical research. Reviewing maps, aerial photos, previous property uses, and environmental databases helps identify past contamination sources. 3, interviews. Speaking with current and former owners, tenants, local authorities, all of that helps gather information about potential environmental issues. 4 is a database search. Environmental databases are reviewed to check for records of contamination, and that may include leaking underground storage tanks, known as USTs, or hazardous waste. And finally, number 5, due diligence report. The Phase 1 ESA findings are compiled into a report identifying recognized environmental conditions, or RECs, that suggest contamination risks. If concerns arise, proceed to Phase 2 for further investigation. First of all, sampling. Soil, groundwater, air, or surface water samples are collected to test for contaminants. That may include petroleum or metals. Secondly, laboratory analysis. Those samples are analyzed to measure contamination levels and to compare them with environmental safety and health standards. Number 3, a focused investigation. This involves a deeper investigation of specific areas such as USTs or sites where chemicals were previously handled, stored, or processed. The Phase 2 ESA results help determine if remediation or additional action is required before the warehouse can be considered. If contamination is found during Phase 2, further investigations may include a UST investigation, inspecting the site for USTs, reviewing state and federal databases, checking for leaks. Asbestos and lead testing. For older buildings, testing for asbestos-containing materials or lead-based paint may be needed for existing facilities. In many regions, radon testing may be recommended. High levels can pose health risks later. There also may be other environmental concerns depending upon whether there's an existing facility or prior industrial use. Those additional environmental issues that may have resulted from chemical spills may need to be addressed. Let's get to the big daddy here, remediation. If contamination exceeds regulatory limits, a Phase 3 ESA may be required. This involves remediation or cleanup. That can include soil removal or groundwater treatment based on the type and the extent of the contamination. There are also several critical compliance considerations. Number 1, federal, state, or provincial regulations. You must ensure that the site adheres to all environmental regulations, and that may include obtaining necessary permits for remediation or waste removal. Secondly, a check should be made for potential liabilities related to the site on the EPA's NPL or National Priorities List for hazardous waste under CERCLA. There also may be local environmental regulations you must ensure compliance with as well. To summarize, start with a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. That's to evaluate the property's environmental condition. And if concerns arise, proceed to Phase 2 for a further investigation. Depending upon those findings, remediation or additional testing may be necessary involving a Phase 3. Finally, working with an experienced environmental consultant or consulting firm will help you assure that all concerns are addressed, as well as assuring that the project will comply with all regulations. All of this work and preparation will help avoid potentially much more serious problems down the road. Thanks for your time today on Mighty Line Minute. Hopefully you learned a bit more about warehouse safety by design and those early considerations that must be made. Join us next week to learn more about due diligence, this time involving safety and property loss control as it involves facility siting and selection. In the meantime, drop in at mightylinetape.com to learn how organizing and designing your warehouse for success can be an easy and rewarding process, one that helps assure employee retention, safety, and success for the future. You'll find the world's best industrial floor tape right here. Have a safe day.